High Admiral Vexterra of the Galactic Concordat stood motionless before the massive observation window of her flagship, her crystalline exoskeleton reflecting the distant starlight. Her compound eyes focused on the holographic display, showing yet another successful human mining operation in the Kuiper Belt. The sight made her mandibles click with anxiety. "Impossible," she whispered, watching as a human vessel, barely larger than a short-range scout, casually maneuvered through a dense field of ice and rock at velocities that should have torn it apart. They shouldn't even be able to survive out there. Admiral, her second-in-command, strategic analyst Zinko, approached with a data crystal clutched in his tentacles. "The latest observations have been processed. You need to see this." The holographic display shifted, showing a human mining outpost anchored to a massive asteroid. The structure looked like it had been assembled from salvaged parts, its hull marked with patches and obvious repairs. Yet it housed over 200 humans, operating in conditions that would require triple redundant life support systems by Concordat standards. "Look at their power readings," Zinko pointed with a tentacle. "They're running that entire operation on what we use for a minimal survival shelter. And those aren't environmental suits they're wearing. They're using mechanical pressure suits with manual seals." Vexterra's crystalline plates shifted colors, displaying her disbelief. "How are they not dead?" "The radiation alone showed." "That's just it, Admiral. They know about the radiation. They know about the vacuum. They know about all the dangers. They just don't seem to care." The display shifted again, showing a human repair crew working on the exterior of their station. One of their suit seals was visibly leaking atmosphere, yet the worker continued welding a hull breach as if nothing was wrong. Their vital signs, incredibly, remained stable. "We've been watching them for 3 cycles now," Zinko continued. "At first, we thought they were simply reckless, perhaps even suicidal. But there's a pattern to their behavior. They're not ignorant of the risks. They're accustomed to them." Vexterra moved closer to the display, studying the crude but effective designs of the human structures. "The Council dismissed them as primitives when we first detected their radio signals. Their technology appeared centuries behind acceptable standards for first contact. But this—" "Yes, Admiral. While we were debating whether they were ready for interstellar communication, they were already establishing a presence throughout their solar system. And they're doing it with technology that, by our standards, shouldn't even function in deep space." A new alert flashed across the display. Another human vessel had been detected, this one larger than the others. Its hull was a patchwork of different materials, its engine configuration seemingly cobbled together from multiple design philosophies. Yet it moved with surprising grace, its trajectory taking it straight through a debris field that Concordat navigators would have spent days plotting a safe route around. "Their ships," Vexterra mused, "remind me of the Vorax swarms." Her plates shifted to a deeper hue, indicating deep thought. The Vorax were an ancient species that had nearly overwhelmed the Concordat millennia ago, their crude but devastating vessels overwhelming more advanced defenses through sheer resilience and adaptability. "An apt comparison, Admiral," Zinko agreed. "But the humans are different. The Vorax were driven by pure biological imperatives. Humans are innovative. They see a problem and create solutions that shouldn't work, but somehow do. Watch this." The display showed a human vessel suffering catastrophic engine failure. By all logic, the crew should have abandoned ship immediately. Instead, they rerouted power through what appeared to be a jury-rigged system of emergency conductors, used a controlled explosion to alter their trajectory, and managed to limp back to their station for repairs. "That should have been impossible," Vexterra stated flatly. "Their backup systems are insufficient for—" "They didn't use backup systems, Admiral. They improvised. Created a solution in the moment that our engineers insist would have a 0% chance of success. Yet they succeeded." Vexterra's color shifted to the deep purple of decision. "The Council needs to know about this. These humans, they're not primitive. They're something else entirely. Their technology isn't crude. It's proof that they can survive and thrive in conditions that would kill most species. There's more, Admiral. Zinko's tentacles twisted nervously. We've intercepted their communications. These vessels, these stations, they're not military installations. They're civilian operations. Mining companies, research outposts, private enterprises. The implications hit Vexterra like a gravitational wave. If these were civilian vessels, built and operated by private citizens with minimal resources, what were their actual military capabilities? Prepare a priority transmission to the Council, she ordered, her plates now shifting between warning colors. Classification: immediate. Subject: potential Type 7 civilization discovery. Zinko's tentacles writhed in shock. Type 7. But that classification is reserved for species that can survive anywhere, adapt to anything, overcome challenges that should be insurmountable. Vexterra turned back to the display, watching as more human vessels emerged from their crude but effective space docks. The Council thought we were deciding whether to permit humanity to join interstellar society. We need to consider the possibility that we're the ones who aren't ready for them. As if to emphasize her point, a new alert showed a human vessel beginning construction of another station. Their workers moved through the vacuum with casual confidence, wielding tools that looked like they belonged in a museum. Yet there was no denying their effectiveness. Send another team to observe their actual shipyards, Vexterra commanded. I want to know what these humans are capable of when they're actually trying to build something impressive. And Zinko: yes, Admiral. Mark all human vessels as potential military assets, regardless of their apparent function. Something tells me we've only begun to understand what these beings are capable of. As Vexterra watched the humans continue their seemingly impossible feats of survival and engineering, she couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy was about to change forever. Humanity wasn't just another spacefaring species. They were something unprecedented, a civilization that had evolved on a death world and emerged stronger for it, carrying that strength into the stars. The Council would have to be made to understand. The humans weren't rising to meet the Concordat standards. They were establishing their own. And those standards defied everything the galaxy thought it knew about survival in space. Chief Researcher Nixval hunched over her analysis station in the Concordat's Advanced Technologies Division, her bioluminescent patches pulsing with frustration as she reviewed the latest data on human technological development. Around her, the curved walls of the research chamber were covered in holographic displays showing human vessels, structures, and equipment. It doesn't make sense, she muttered, her thin fingers tracing patterns in the air as she manipulated the data streams. Their technological progression doesn't follow any known development model. Her assistant, data analyst Cree, floated nearby in his levitation field. Perhaps we're applying the wrong metrics. We've applied every metric. Nixval's bioluminescence flared brightly. Look at this timeline. They went from primitive chemical rockets to fusion drives in less than a century. But they're still using mechanical switches and physical controls. They have quantum computers but install them in vessels that leak atmosphere. The main display showed a cross-section of a human vessel designated as a deep space salvage tug. Its design violated at least 36 Concordat safety protocols, yet it had been successfully operating in the outer reaches of the solar system for over a decade. Their latest vessel just completed trials in the asteroid belt, Cree reported, pulling up new data. It's, well, you should see for yourself. The holographic display shifted to show a massive human ship. Its hull was a patchwork of different materials, some sections clearly repurposed from older vessels. External storage containers were bolted directly to the hull, and its engine configuration seemed to defy several laws of physics. They're calling it the Persistence, Cree continued. It's designed for long-range resource extraction in high-radiation environments. The interesting part is its life support system. Nixval studied the readings, her frustration giving way to disbelief. This can't be right. They're using a biological filtration system combined with mechanical recyclers. The redundancy alone would make it impossibly complex to maintain. That's just it. Kree's levitation field flickered with excitement. They're not maintaining it. They're letting it evolve. The biological components adapt to stress factors, becoming more efficient over time. It's completely counter to every life support design principle we have. The researcher moved through the data, her mind struggling to process the implications. The humans weren't just surviving in space, they were bringing their planet's evolutionary principles with them, adapting, improving, letting their systems grow stronger through stress and challenge. "Show me their shipyard operations," she commanded. New images filled the chamber. Human construction facilities orbited their planet, their methods seemingly chaotic, but undeniably effective. Workers in simple pressure suits moved confidently through vacuum, wielding tools that looked primitive, but achieved results that matched or exceeded Concordat standards. They're not advancing linearly. Nixval realized, her bioluminescence pulsing with the revelation. They're advancing in all directions simultaneously. Look, while we were puzzling over their crude hull materials, they developed quantum communication arrays. But instead of upgrading their hulls, they just kept both technologies. Kree's levitation field shifted closer to the displays. Is that efficient? Efficiency isn't their priority. Nixval breathed, finally understanding. Survival is. Everything they build, every technology they develop, serves one purpose: ensuring they can continue to operate no matter what fails. They're not trying to achieve perfection. They're trying to achieve redundancy. The displays shifted through more images. Human vessels surviving impacts that should have destroyed them. Stations continuing to operate with massive system failures. Crews adapting to conditions that would have triggered immediate evacuation protocols in Concordat facilities. Look at their repair methods. Nixval continued, her excitement growing. They're not just fixing things, they're improving them. Every failure teaches them something new. Every accident leads to innovations we never considered because we were too focused on preventing accidents in the first place. A priority alert flashed across the displays. The humans had launched a new type of vessel, something their intercepted communications designated as a Deep Space Rapid Response Unit. Analysis suggests it's some kind of emergency rescue craft, Kree reported. But its capabilities. It's as fast as our military interceptors, as durable as our heavy cruisers, and equipped with medical facilities that could qualify as a mobile hospital, all packed into a hull that looks like it was assembled in someone's backyard. Nixval's bioluminescence shifted to the deep blues of profound realization. They're not just surviving in space. They're making space adapt to them. Every vessel, every station, every piece of technology they create is designed to be repaired, modified, and improved while operating in conditions that we consider unsurvivable. She turned to face her assistant, her expression grave. "Kree, I need you to prepare a special report for the Council. Classification. Paradigm shift warning. We're not dealing with a primitive species that needs to be guided into proper technological development. We're dealing with a species that has developed an entirely different understanding of what technology should be." "What do you mean?" Kree asked, his levitation field flickering with concern. "The Concordat develops technology to make space safe for life," Nixval explained. "Humans develop technology to make life safe for space. They don't see the void as something to be feared or conquered. They see it as a challenge to be met and overcome, one jury-rigged solution at a time." She turned back to the displays, watching as the new human vessel maneuvered through a field of debris that would have given Concordat navigators nightmares. And the truly terrifying part, they're getting better at it. Every failure, every near disaster, every improvised repair makes them stronger. "Should we be worried?" Kree asked quietly. Nixval's bioluminescence pulsed with complex patterns of concern and admiration. "We should be terrified. Because somewhere out there, they're building actual warships. And if this is what they consider standard civilian technology." She left the thought unfinished, but the implications hung in the air like a gravitational distortion. The humans weren't just advancing. They were evolving, adapting, becoming something the galaxy had never seen before. And they were doing it with technology that by all reasonable standards shouldn't even work. The Concordat had always prided itself on having the most advanced technology in known space. But watching the humans casually defy what should have been possible, Nix Vol wondered if they had been measuring advancement all wrong. Perhaps true progress wasn't about achieving perfection. It was about achieving persistence. Captain Mira Sen of the Concordat Diplomatic Corps felt her crystalline skin crackling with anxiety as she watched the human mining fleet approach Triton. Her vessel, the Stellar Accord, was tasked with monitoring human activities in the outer solar system, but nothing in her training had prepared her for what she was witnessing. The human fleet consisted of 5 vessels, each looking like it had been assembled from spare parts and optimism. The lead ship, which their intercepted communications identified as the Olympus Mons, was particularly concerning. Its hull bore evidence of multiple impacts, repairs, and modifications, yet it moved through Neptune's treacherous magnetic field as if navigating a calm sea. They can't seriously intend to mine in these conditions, her science officer, Techlor, observed. His sensory tendrils were coiled tightly, a sign of extreme stress. The radiation levels alone. Look, Mira Sen interrupted, pointing to the display. The human ships were deploying what appeared to be mining equipment, but their approach defied all standard protocols. Instead of carefully positioning themselves outside the worst of the magnetic disturbances, they were diving straight into them. Captain, her communications officer called out, "We're picking up their internal transmissions. They're treating this like a routine operation." The bridge crew watched in collective horror as the humans began their work. Their ships anchored themselves to Triton's icy surface using crude but effective mechanical clamps. Teams of workers emerged in suits that looked impossibly thin for the environment, carrying tools that seemed better suited for a primitive construction site than deep space mining. "Those suits," Techlor muttered, analyzing the readings. "They're not using energy shields, not using gravitational buffers. They're relying on is that mechanical pressure ceiling." Before anyone could respond, alarms blared across the bridge. A massive electromagnetic surge from Neptune was approaching, the kind of event that would send Concordat ships fleeing for safety. "They must evacuate," Mira Sen stated, her crystals shifting to warning colors. "There's no way their ships can withstand." She fell silent as the human crews continued working, seemingly unconcerned by the approaching danger. The surge hit, washing over their vessels in waves of destructive energy. The Stellar Accord's sensors registered multiple system failures across the human fleet, but they didn't stop. When the first ship's primary power failed, they switched to backups. When those failed, they switched to emergency systems. When those failed, they began manually rotating their vessels to use solar panels, all while continuing their mining operation. "Impossible," Techlor whispered. "They're not just surviving. They're adapting in real time." The display showed human repair crews moving across their vessels' hulls, implementing fixes that should have been impossible in these conditions. They weren't just replacing damaged components, they were modifying them, improving them, learning from each failure. "Captain," the sensor officer reported, "they're changing their ship's configurations. They're using the damaged panels as makeshift radiation shields, redirecting the electromagnetic energy around their hulls." Mira Sen's crystalline structure vibrated with disbelief. The humans weren't just surviving the impossible conditions, they were turning those conditions to their advantage. "New contact," the tactical officer announced, large vessel approaching from the Jupiter sector. The bridge crew watched as another human ship appeared, this one even more intimidating than the mining vessels. Its hull was scarred and weathered, bearing the marks of countless repairs and modifications. The registry identified it as a rescue and recovery vessel named Prometheus. "They're deploying some kind of energy collection system," Techlor reported, his tendrils unwinding in fascination. They're not just shielding themselves from the electromagnetic surge, they're harvesting it for power. The implication struck Mira-sen like a physical blow. These weren't just sturdy ships designed to survive harsh conditions. These were vessels that evolved, adapted, and grew stronger from every challenge they faced. "Signal from the human fleet," the communications officer announced. They're offering assistance. They want to know if our systems were damaged by the surge. The bridge fell silent. The humans, operating vessels that looked like they belonged in a scrapyard, working in conditions that should have been lethal, were offering help to a Concordat ship that was supposedly vastly more advanced. "Captain," Teclor said quietly, "I've completed my analysis of their mining operation. These ships, they're not military vessels. They're not even high-end civilian craft. They're basic industrial equipment, modified by their crews over time." Mira-sen felt her crystals shift to the deep purple of revelation. If these are their mining ships, if this is what they consider normal industrial equipment, then what do their actual warships look like? Teclor finished. The question hung in the air as they watched the human crews continue their work. The electromagnetic surge had destroyed 3 of their primary systems, damaged countless others, and created conditions that would have sent any Concordat vessel running for safety. But the humans stayed. They adapted. They overcame. And most terrifyingly of all, they treated it as just another day at work. "Send a priority message to command," Mira-sen ordered, her voice steady despite her inner turmoil. Tell them we need to fundamentally reassess our understanding of human technological capabilities. What we're witnessing isn't just resilience, it's evolution in action." As if to emphasize her point, the human mining fleet began expanding their operation, pushing even deeper into the hazardous conditions around Triton. Their vessels, battered but unbeaten, continued to adapt and improve, each challenge making them more efficient, more resilient. The Triton incident, as it would come to be known, marked a turning point in the Concordat's assessment of humanity. They had dismissed humans as primitives playing at spacefaring civilization. Now they realized they were witnessing something unprecedented, a species that didn't just survive in space, but thrived on the very challenges that should have destroyed them. And somewhere out there, Mira-sen knew, were the real warships. The thought made her crystals pulse with waves of anxious anticipation. Because if these mining vessels could accomplish such feats, the true extent of human military capability might be beyond anything the galaxy was prepared to face. Grand Strategist Sol Van of the Concordat Defense Council stood before the assembled military leaders, his gelatinous form rippling with concern as he gestured to the holographic display dominating the chamber. The image showed a human merchant vessel, the Star Wanderer, casually traversing an asteroid field that would have given their best military pilots pause. "What you're watching," he announced, "was recorded 3 cycles ago in the Kuiper Belt. This vessel, which human records classify as a simple cargo hauler, survived conditions that destroyed 2 of our patrol craft last year." The assembled leaders murmured, their various biological and synthetic forms expressing different shades of disbelief. The display shifted to show the vessel's internal schematics, captured by long-range scanners. "Notice the hull composition," Sol Van continued, his translucent body pulsing with bioluminescent emphasis. "They're using materials we would consider obsolete, barely suitable for atmospheric flight. Yet they've somehow engineered them to withstand deep space conditions that challenge our most advanced alloys." Fleet Admiral Kex Toll, her cybernetic implants glowing softly, leaned forward. "Perhaps our intelligence is flawed. This must be a disguised military vessel." "That's what we thought at first," Sol Van replied. "Until we saw this." The hologram shifted to show the Star Wanderer docking at a human space station, its cargo holds open to reveal nothing more threatening than containers of processed metals, agricultural supplies, and manufacturing equipment. The crew, dressed in simple work clothes, went about their business with casual efficiency. "This is a merchant vessel," Sol Van emphasized. "A cargo hauler. a ship designed to transport goods from one point to another. And yet, he gestured, and the display showed the vessel weathering a solar storm that would have crippled a Concordat warship. The humans had simply adjusted their shield configurations, rerouted power through backup systems, and continued their journey as if nothing unusual had happened. "We've been monitoring their trading fleet for the past cycle," he continued. "Every vessel shows similar capabilities. They don't just survive catastrophic conditions, they adapt to them. Look at this." The hologram displayed another human ship, this one even more weathered than the Star Wanderer. Its hull bore the scars of countless impacts and repairs, yet it moved with surprising grace through a dense field of space debris. "The Phoenix Rising," Sol Van identified. "When we first spotted it, we thought it was derelict. The hull was breached in 3 places, its main drive was operating at 40% efficiency, and half its power grid was offline. But instead of abandoning ship, the crew—" He paused, his form rippling with a mixture of admiration and fear. "They kept going. They sealed the breaches with materials that shouldn't work in space. They'd rebuilt their drive system while in motion. They jury-rigged their power grid using parts that weren't designed to work together. And they completed their delivery schedule on time." The chamber erupted in shocked discussions. Species from across the galaxy, each with their own proud spacefaring traditions, struggled to comprehend what they were witnessing. "These are not the actions of a primitive species," Sol Van continued once the noise had died down. "These are the actions of a civilization that has made adversity their ally. Every challenge they face, every system failure, every near disaster, it all makes them stronger." He manipulated the controls, and the hologram showed dozens of human trading vessels, each bearing similar marks of damage and improvised repairs. Their entire merchant fleet operates this way. No standardization, no adherence to safety protocols. Every ship is unique, modified by its crew based on their experiences and needs. "But how?" Fleet Admiral Kex Tull demanded. "How can they achieve such results with inferior technology?" "Because they're not trying to achieve perfection," Sol Van explained, his bioluminescence pulsing with the revelation. "They're achieving persistence. Every failure teaches them something new. Every repair makes their ships more resilient. They're not following a design philosophy. They're evolving." The implications settled over the chamber like a heavy gravitational field. If these were merely trading vessels, cobbled together from basic materials and operated by civilian crews, the Council needs to understand. Sol Van concluded, his form now glowing with urgent warning patterns. "We've been measuring human technological progress by our standards, expecting them to follow our path of development. But they're not building ships to match our capabilities. They're building ships that survive anything, adapt to everything, and grow stronger from every challenge they face." He gestured one final time, and the hologram showed a massive human vessel under construction in Earth orbit. Its design was unlike anything they'd seen before, its purpose unknown. "Somewhere out there," he said quietly, "they're building real warships. And if these cargo haulers can survive conditions that destroy our military vessels, what are their actual weapons of war capable of?" The question hung in the air, unanswered but terrifying in its implications. The galaxy had long assumed that humanity would eventually catch up to their level of technology. Now they faced the possibility that humanity wasn't behind at all. They were simply advancing in a direction no one had thought possible. And somewhere in the void, their real warships waited, unseen and unknown, products of a civilization that had turned survival itself into an art form. Supreme Commander Rick Farrell of the Concordat Defense Force felt every one of his sensory nodes tingling with alarm as he reviewed the incoming data. The Crystal Pirates, notorious for their advanced stealth technology and brutal efficiency, had just made their boldest move yet, attacking a human trading convoy near the Kuiper Belt. "Show me," he ordered, his crystalline exoskeleton shifting colors with anxiety. The tactical display materialized, showing the attack in progress. The pirates had struck with typical precision, their quantum-cloaked vessels appearing from seemingly nowhere. Under normal circumstances, this would have been a simple smash-and-grab operation, the kind the Kristall had perfected over centuries of raiding. But these weren't normal circumstances. These were human ships. The first pirate vessel fired a plasma burst designed to disable the convoy's lead ship. The human vessel, a battered cargo hauler named Resilient Spirit, took the hit directly to its engine section. By all known physics, it should have been crippled instantly. Instead, it adapted. "Impossible," whispered strategic advisor Yenko, watching as the human ship's damaged systems reconfigured themselves. They're rerouting power through their hull plating. They're using the heat from the plasma attack to boost their auxiliary systems. The pirates, clearly expecting their targets to be helpless, moved in for boarding operations. That's when everything changed. "New contacts," the sensor officer announced, his voice rising with disbelief. Multiple signatures emerging from the Oort cloud. They're human vessels, but nothing like we've ever seen before. The tactical display shifted, and Supreme Commander Rixveril felt his crystalline structure nearly shatter from shock. These weren't the cobbled-together merchant ships they'd grown accustomed to. These were something else entirely. The first vessel to emerge was massive, its hull a seamless blend of materials that their sensors couldn't even identify. It moved with impossible grace for its size, accelerating at speeds that should have torn it apart. Its designation appeared in their database: HS Prometheus, Human Space Service. "Those are their warships," Yenko breathed. "Their actual warships." The Prometheus didn't attack like any vessel they'd ever seen. Instead of using standard weapon systems, it seemed to weaponize space itself. Gravitational fields bent around it, creating corridors of distorted space that the pirates couldn't navigate. Its hull absorbed energy weapons like they were nothing, each hit seemingly making it stronger. "Look at the design," Rixveril observed, his color shifting to deep analytical purple. "They've taken everything they learned from their civilian ships, the adaptability, the resilience, the ability to grow stronger from damage, and perfected it." More human warships emerged, each demonstrating capabilities that defied conventional military doctrine. They didn't just fight. They evolved during the battle, each attack making them more effective, more lethal. One human vessel, designated Defiant, took a direct hit from a pirate's main gun. Instead of evading subsequent attacks, it analyzed the weapon's frequency and modulated its shields to absorb the energy, using it to power its own systems. "They're not just surviving," Yenko noted, his tentacles writhing with a mixture of fear and admiration. "They're learning. Every attack teaches them something new. Every engagement makes them stronger." The pirates, realizing they were hopelessly outmatched, attempted to retreat. But the human warships had already adapted to their stealth technology, tracking them through methods that even the Concordat's best scientists couldn't comprehend. "Message from the human flagship," the communications officer announced. "Text only. It reads, 'We appreciate the Concordat's concern, but we can handle our own security. These pirates won't be troubling anyone's trading routes again.'" The battle, if it could even be called that, was over in minutes. The pirate fleet, one of the most feared forces in the sector, had been completely neutralized. Not destroyed, neutralized. The human warships had disabled them with a precision that spoke of capabilities far beyond anything the galaxy had imagined. "All this time," Rixveril said quietly, his crystalline form pulsing with the revelation, "we thought their civilian ships were crude approximations of proper space vessels. But they weren't crude. They were test beds. Every merchant ship, every mining vessel, every repair crew, they were all experiments, learning experiences. And these are the results," Yenko finished. "Ships that don't just survive in space. They master it. Technology that doesn't just function, it evolves. Weapons that don't just destroy, they adapt." The tactical display showed the human warships escorting the trading convoy to safety, their true capabilities now impossible to ignore. The Galaxy had spent years wondering what humanity's real military vessels would look like, never realizing that every civilian ship had been a prototype, every near disaster a learning opportunity, every improvised repair a step toward perfection. "Send word to the Council," Supreme Commander Rix Viril ordered, his color shifting to the deep blue of finality. "The humans haven't been catching up to our technology. They've been developing something entirely new. We thought their civilian ships were primitive because they didn't match our standards. We never considered that maybe our standards were the primitive ones." As the human fleet disappeared back into the depths of space, Rix Viril reflected on how fundamentally the Galaxy had misunderstood humanity. They weren't just another spacefaring species adapting to the challenges of the void. They were a force of nature that had turned survival itself into an art form, and space into their greatest ally. The real human warships had finally emerged, and they were more than weapons of war. They were the culmination of humanity's greatest strength, the ability to turn every challenge, every failure, every near disaster into a step toward something greater. The Galaxy would never be the same.